Hey up guys, it's Rory from Enlighten the Shadows here, and we are a men's mental health group that is out there to support and make a difference. Our heart in Enlighten the Shadows is to create media, mindfulness and mentoring in a way we can really impact men's lives so that we can see them transform and utterly be supported and poured out love upon their lives. So it's, even if men are just struggling with a bit of stress and anxiety, or across the spectrum, all the way to if they feel like they just want to end their life or be suicidal. So if that's you, if you feel like you have no reason to live anymore, or you just need a little bit of support, if you need some guidance about how to better your life, some of your mindsets and your strategies, we'll be honoured to have you on the journey with us. And you'll just say, welcome to the Brotherhood. We don't claim to have all the answers, but we are just here for you, extending that olive branch to see you flourish in your life. And we just say, have a go, give it a go. You never know what could happen. Have a great day. Cheers, guys. Hey up everyone, welcome to Enlighten the Shadows. It's Rory here. Today I have with me Andy Morrison. I had a guest with me in the part A version of this interview. We won't go into that. Slight glitch from me. But as you may or may not know, people who are old enough to remember, I'm 33 now, but back in 99, I always remember that Division 2 playoff final. Man City were on a brink of devastation, if I put it bluntly. And I'm a Leeds fan, as you can see. The crest is back there. And I know what it's like. And Andy here is today going to not just share his football experience with our viewers today. I'm really excited to hear his story, which I actually found, again, on Twitter, guys. So, Andy, I want to say welcome to Enlighten the Shadows. And just want to say, your tweet, mate, wow. Unbelievable bravery, mate. I'm really, really grateful you've come on the show, because I don't know about you, but a lot of men struggle to open up about things like this, don't they, mate?
Yeah, I guess so. And thanks for asking me on. And it was never about bravery. You know, I've only been on Twitter a few years. So, you know, I was 17, 18, 19, 20 when I wasn't on Twitter. So years sober. And, you know, and it's a platform to talk about recovery, you know, and then put it out there. And, you know, you always get a mixed reaction, and there's always this kind of like, oh, bless him sort of thing. And it's not like that. It's never been like that for a long, long time. The 23 years is a celebration, you know, of what can be done from where I actually was in my life at that point. And now to be 23 years down the line, you know, and not pick up a drink since, you know, February the 2nd, 99. And it's a celebration, really. And it was to put it out there. And I had a lot of feedback and a lot of, you know, private messages asking for advice and how did I do it, et cetera, et cetera. And that was the whole point, to put it out there. If I can do it, then anyone can do it, you know, and that's the message I wanted to put across. And I think I got that message across.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think, thank you for doing that for people as well, because I think obviously they might look up to you because of your background, where you've come from. And if they're hearing you with those kind of motivational words, like sometimes people can get stuck in a lot of rut. I personally can't relate. Like we're all differently wired, aren't we? In our brains and our lifestyles, our cultures and our backgrounds. And I think sometimes like I can have a drink and then mate, I can go months without one, which yeah, it's just crazy in that way. And then some people really struggle with it, like you have in the past. Yeah, just go back in time. Because I was looking at your club history actually, in Wikipedia of all places, which is a wonderful source. But yeah, I was looking back at all your clubs and I saw like quite a few that you're at. So as a Leeds fan, you used to play for the Terriers, didn't you, back in the day, or Huddersfield, I think, and Blackpool, I believe, and then obviously, yeah. So you know, with the drinking and the culture, I think back in your day when you was a player, like a lot of lads naturally drank quite more casually. It was more of an acceptable thing. Like, do you know, when you were growing up, did you drink a lot then as a teenager, or?
Not really, no. You know, I think my pattern was no different to any other teenager. You know, you sort of get to that school disco or that party around 13, 14, and, you know, you have that bottle of cider, which is the easiest thing to take at that time. And, you know, and then you're very ill for a day, and then, you know, you crack on. And it's no different experience to anybody else, really. You know, in my early years, there's no peer pressure. There was nothing, you know, that I looked at. And, but, you know, there was a definite I think when I first had my drink, the first drink I ever took, I think it was slightly different mentally to anyone else who I, ever spoke with, apart from anyone who's in recovery. Exactly how I felt at that point in my life and where I was, and that drink seemed to fill a lot of, a large hole inside me.
Yeah, wow. So sorry, yeah, you've gone straight in there. You're talking about the large hole inside you. I had a guest last week. It's out this Sunday. Jamie Beaton. He's a professional chef, and he does a lot of work on plant-based diet, healthy diet. But a lot of people on the show, a lot of blokes would be like, "Yeah, right, all right, mate, no thanks." But we didn't just talk about that. We dived into the layers of the why behind it, because he was really overweight, was struggling with his mental health. And so we're talking about the shadow, something that Carl Jung talks about with stripping back the layers, and it's that thing inside you that you fight against, the part of you you don't like, and you're battling through your life against it. And everyone's shadow is different. And you mentioned about a hole, which that really stood out to me. So for our viewers, mate, can you talk about what you mean by that hole in your life? Because
I think experience, as I say, at the age I'm at now, and I think when I first went into recovery and the years following it, things, on reflection, you see how things affected you, and you see how you acted. And, at the age of 14, when you took that first drink, you weren't thinking to yourself, wow, that's just filled a real hole there, because you're just functioning as a child, or a teenager. You're just doing the things that teenagers do. Only on reflection over a long period of time do you look back at, your teenage years, your 20s, your 30s, and see somebody that was struggling. And very often in, those dark moments or depression, only when you come out the other side do you actually look back and think, wow, I was really, really struggling at that point. When you're actually in it, you're that immersed in it that you don't actually see it. And that's why we talk about reaching out and having good friends, good people about you that'll actually say to you, are you okay? You're just not right at the minute. And, sometimes that might be the trigger that you need. But going back to that, I didn't know at that time, not at all. Again, you look back and you always thought a little bit different. You never felt really like you fitted in. Always felt like you were on the outside looking at the world all the time. And then all of a sudden you get something that makes you fit in straight away. I've heard it said in many, many ways, the lights came on immediately, or, you went from Clark Kent to Superman in a split second with a drink. And that's how it affected, so physically, I don't really think at that point, but definitely mentally at that point, there was an immediate, that's made me feel different. And when can I get it again? Because although I was ill, whatever, there was still something where I felt I fitted in. I felt part of what you would call normal human life.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know so you grew up in Scotland, right? And then you moved south of the border through obviously professional football. When you were hanging out with, lads or the youth team, and you coming of age, so, 18 years old, what was it like for you up in Scotland, like in terms of drinking culture or,
I moved from Scotland. Yeah, I moved from Scotland at the age of 9.
Oh, so really young.
Yeah, so I was in Plymouth, from that period. And, I was brought up in a tough industry, which is the fishing industry, and people work hard all week long, and the hours are relentless. And then they party and they, they're millionaires at the weekend, and then they go back to sea on a Monday. And that's the culture that I was brought up in. So, it was an active environment that was excitable, jovial, a lot of violence at weekends, and something that you become accustomed to and used to. So like when I began to drink, I'd say probably 17, 18 was the first time I really started to, only on reflection, not at that time did I think my drinking's abnormal, most certainly not, because you're just fitting in, you're just trying to be part of society, you're going out with your mates or whatever. But when I think back and when I look back at it and I think how I thought, there's no point in going out and having a drink unless I can get drunk. And I don't think 17, 18-year-olds think like that, and that's one of the things I always speak about when I do talks or I go into schools. them patterns, them early patterns, when other people are, if your intention is, I'm going to get drunk, then why do you need that? And already the warning signs were there. Again, not at the time, but I remember going out with the football team, and I think I was 19 or 18 or 19, and I broke into the first team, and the lads went out for a drink on a Tuesday after training, and they were having a pint. I said, I'll have an orange juice, and I remember a couple of the older players saying, orange juice, we've heard you like a drink. The rumours are you go out with the lads and you love a drink. And I was like, there's no point in having a drink unless we can get pissed. And now I look at that, and if somebody was 17, 18, 19 was thinking like that, the alarm bells would be going off immediately. Yeah. And, and like I say, it's only on reflection that the progression came from that point onwards.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of when you were that age, obviously you're trying to make a professional choice there. You don't want to make yourself look like a mug in front of the lads, and you wanted to make it yourself as a footballer. Like, yeah. So when you weren't in that environment, will you say like you were binge drinking? Because when I'm having this conversation with you now, so I'm a Christian actually now, but back then I weren't. I was not raised anything like that, and yeah. So when I would be drinking, oh mate, I'd be mixing shots. Drinking lots of beer as well, so it was like kind of a bit threshold, like gun ho, big time with a drink. And so I grew up I was born in '88, so I grew up in the '90s, and where the age we're talking about is like in the noughties. So yeah, it was quite popular to get like cheap drinks, but drink fast and mix a lot. Was it like that for you, or did you? Because there was a lot of bitter around, I think,
I think when I actually look back. And obviously spoke with people after I put the tweets out, I felt it might have misled in a certain way, that people might have thought that, how was I functioning as a professional footballer? How was I captaining Blackpool, captaining Huddersfield, captaining Manchester City if I had a drink problem? But I had an incredible ability to be disciplined, and in my whole career, I never, ever drank 72 hours before a game. It was always planned and structured, where I knew that I had time off. And you said binge drinking, it was binge drinking, but I'd never reached the point where physically the drink had kind of beat me, because of my age and my fitness and my strength. But mentally, I was shot to bits at the end. And it's the suspension, the end of season, a weekend off, whatever it was. I could plan, as long as I could see a week, 10 days ahead of me, where I could have 2 or 3 days of oblivion, everything else fitted in. So I wouldn't drink. If I'd game Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, you wouldn't get the opportunity, because I was very, very disciplined and professional. But when I knew I could, and it seemed to just grow on me, the need to escape. From life, from everything, I wouldn't say the pressures of football, because I never ever thought or feared in that sense, but just life, bills, family, responsibilities. I needed to escape, and I escaped with a drink, and that would be a day, 2 days, or if it had to be a day, a night on it, then it would be that. But I was always back in training. I never missed training. I always trained right, and I was always ready for the game. So I just felt maybe there was an element of that where people might have thought, well, they captained them that year to the playoffs and then won the playoffs. What sort of state was in? I trained and I played like an obsessed. My obsessive nature was directed to football, when I did, and then when I stepped away from football, and the opportunity was to drink, I drank, and the carnage ensued.
Wow. Yeah, that's such a good point, because I think when, I've done it, when you think of like alcoholic or alcoholism and recovery, AA and all this stuff, which we're going to break down hopefully for the viewers to kind of have a bit of an insight to, and really signpost and guide them if anyone is struggling. But it's the way you've kind of like almost scheduled it in your life, like you've managed to like segment, the football and then the drink, and it's like, wow, it's like, I don't know if correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm learning even just talking to you, like a high functioning alcoholism, isn't it? When you're able to be high functioning, where it's not really sabotaging your life as much as it can for some. But the fact that you actually like could schedule it in your diary in such a way, and still to this day acknowledge it,
No,
I think it's quite.
It was, and there was always drinking after a Saturday game. You know, you'd be straight out, and it was. You know, I knew. Well, I didn't know when I stopped drinking, but I know now that the progression of alcoholism would have took me to that point where I'd become dependent. You know, 33, 35. It's irrelevant anyway because it never happened. But my knowledge and understanding of alcoholism, it's a progressive illness, and it would have progressed, and I would have got to that point where I needed a drink in the morning, you know, to stop the delirium tremors, you know, the shaking and that. I would have needed that. That would have come eventually. 35, 40, I don't know when, but inevitably it would have come. And, you know, I never got to that place with that desperation, you know, to drink again. It was always, as you just said, it was structured, organized, and I knew I could. You know, I don't think, you know, without going off at a tangent, you know, I went to the Isle of Arran at the age of 23, and I read up that there was 4 golf courses on Isle of Arran, and I like golf, and I thought that's perfect. I'm going to drive to Isle of Arran. I'm going to go on there, and I book into a hotel, and I play all the golf courses, have a few drinks, and then go back to training, you know, on these 3 days off. So I went to Arran. I booked into the hotel, and I didn't leave the hotel for 3 days. I never hit a golf ball. I just tried 3 days. Got back in the car and then drove home. So that it's not normal behavior, you know, to do them sort of things, you know, but there was always a plan, and there was always cunning in denial of actually what you were doing or why you were going. You know, deep down in my subconscious, I would have known that I'm just going to go and get oblivion for 3 days. I need to escape again.
Wow. Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. So back to my faith, which I don't mention much on the channel for obvious reasons, because, like, you know, people believe different things, but that's what we refer to as the flesh. Like, the flesh fights with those urges and those temptations, and it's such a powerful thing. Thank you so much for sharing this, because it helps me relate to certain areas of my life where I battle things, and it's such a clever little thing. I don't know, you know, whatever it is that's, you know, in your brain or your spirit, your body, it just wants to compromise and negotiate constantly. And yeah, it's such a powerful thing. Like, how would you encourage our viewers? Obviously, you speak from the alcohol kind of side of all this, but how would you encourage our viewers with this? Because you mentioned the word intervention. I don't know what point that kind of happened for you, but like, how did you start to be self-acknowledging of what you were processing and try to get that intervention? What does that look like for you?
I'm not totally clear on your point of what you're asking. So
yeah, no worries. So you mentioned you know, you had a 3-day thrash out when you went to the golf course. You're talking about your life, and you're saying how there was no intervention yet. And my point is just like, many men struggle with this area of their life, but with different things. Behaviors manifest for different necessities, don't they? You know, some people like coke, some people like alcohol, some's pornography. Like, what was it that triggered this change in you, in your mind? Or was it a revelation or an experience, or you saw something where you go, right, I think there's a problem here, and then I need help?
Okay, yeah, great question.
Sorry,
yeah, great question. For me, the seed had been planted. I mean, I was 25, and I think I was at Blackpool, and you know, I'd known that, you know, you reach a point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, but that still wasn't enough. And I don't know when people reach their rock bottom, you know, but, you know, the age of 25, if people had said, you know, or I'd experienced the things that I did at 28 when I had my last drink, I wasn't ready to stop drinking. I didn't understand. I wasn't desperate enough to actually knock it on the head. Although, you know, and I and I'm only repeating stuff that's in my autobiography, you know, that came out in 2010. So I'm not saying anything that nobody knows. And it's still quite harsh and still tough to talk about it, because, you know, there's no shame there whatsoever, because it's my life, it's my journey, you know, and, you know, and I'm a massive believer in amor fati, which is obviously Nietzsche, the philosopher, talks about every experience in the past, when you embrace them and see that as your journey, it takes away a bit of the pain. And, and I really believe in that. And, this was my journey. And I was at the age of 25, and I'd had a serious court case where, if I was found guilty, I was going to jail for, sort of anything between 6 to 10 years. And this is when I was at Blackpool and captaining Blackpool, and Sam Allardyce is the manager at that point,
Yeah.
And I was rightly found not guilty of the charge. And in the 6 months before, the 6 months leading up to the court case, I wasn't allowed in any licensed premises in the Plymouth area. And, I had an agreement with the club that, I got my head down, I worked really hard, and I never had a drink in that period, or the need, because the pressures of, continually speaking to solicitors and barristers about this court case and the ramifications if I'm found guilty. But to understand the insanity of alcohol and the insanity of somebody in the position I was in, I never drank for 6 months. I got found not guilty at 3 o'clock, and I was fighting in town at 11 o'clock that evening after I'd been found not guilty. So, the definition of insanity is doing the same things and expecting a different outcome.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't, I promise I'll never drink again. It was always promise I won't commit, or I won't do the things I did with drink in me. But I never said I won't drink. And, somebody sent me a leaflet in relation to recovery and Alcoholics Anonymous. After that, said, listen, I followed your case. I've seen, what you've been through and all that. Listen, know my history and my journey, and said, maybe you need to look at this and have a look and see if you do have a problem with drinking. I looked at and I could relate to, I think it said if you had more than 3, then you've got an issue with alcohol. And I had like 13 of the 15. And I always joked that, it was the most I'd ever got in any sort of exam, 13 out of 15. And but I wasn't ready. And, very quickly in the coming weeks after that, I managed to whittle it down, and I got it down to 5, and then I got it down to 3. And well, everybody does these sort of things. And I carried on. But a seed had been planted at that point. Yeah. And when I had my last drink, and, I see, I don't know religion or anything. And, I see the program I follow as a spiritual program and a spiritual journey that I'm on. And, I think the difference is, again, without any judgment, religion is for people who perhaps are looking to, cleanse and go to heaven eventually. Spirituality is people who've been to hell and don't want to go back there. And that's how I see it. And, I'd reached a point where I was in the north of Scotland, and it was another 3-day binge again. I was at Manchester City. I was suspended for the game. I had the weekend off, and I just went on one. And, it was my last drink, and it was chaos. And, I woke up that morning, as I spoke about last week in my tweets, and I'd reached a point, where, and I know it sounds dramatic, but I was on my knees. I was on my knees, and I was looking up with nobody near me or nobody around me, and just saying, please, please help me. I can't take any more of this pain. And those were the choices I spoke about in the tweet. It was simple, and they were strong, and the power of the easy option was so strong in my head. It was so strong, and it was there for me to go and do it. And I didn't want to pick up a drink. And something that was planted many years before that it does work, and there's an opportunity. So, I took that. I came back down, and I know how devious and deceitful and deceptive alcohol is, and that was on the Monday, and I went to my first meeting on the Wednesday. And even then, on that Wednesday evening, I remember thinking, I'm fit again now. I've got the drink out of my system. My head's clear. The weekend, the boys are out again, and there it was again. But I went to that meeting, and I did what was suggested, and it is a suggestion. And and like I say, from that meeting, you know, and I don't know if the pupil's ready, the teacher appears, or vice versa, you know, but I was ready, and, you know, and I'd had enough, and, you know, and it was the best decision I ever made, you know, and life is tough. Life is tough. There's many things that are asked of us. You know, I lost my younger brother to addiction, 15 years ago, you know, when I was only 5 years into recovery. And that was one of the hardest things I ever had to deal with. And so many other questions, you know, my career ending and everything that goes with that. But I've never needed to pick a drink up. You know, it's never been an option, or I've seen that things will work out better with that. There's a lot of work has to go into that as well. You know, it just doesn't just get handed to you. You know, you've got to make that effort. You've got to have the courage as well. And the serenity prayer, you know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom. You know, I'm 50 now, and the wisdom's a lot better than it was in them early days. And the understanding of what that actually means, you know, helped me to understand what's going to help me. And, you know, and I've never moved away from that. You know, I've been a regular attendance at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and I'm not breaking, you know, my anonymity or anything else, because everything I spoke about, I've been open about, and it's in my book. And it works for me, you know, and it's given me, you know, the opportunity to, you know, to change my life and go in a different direction, and then be where I am today, you know, where I can say I'm 23 years sober. And do this, you know, be privileged to do this chat with you tonight, and hopefully somebody else will, you know, listen, and somebody else will get something from it, and know that the chaos doesn't have to carry on, you know, because I realize today, I know today, that every single human being has the ability to do what I've done. You know, they don't always get the chance. Many people make the wrong decision. But everybody has the ability within them, you know, to recover and lead a, you know, a life that is meaning.
Oh, mate, you're giving me goosebumps. They're tearing up with all this. This is honestly, mate, this is absolutely fantastic. This is absolutely brilliant. Wow. And I'll tell you another thing. I'm glad you said you've got a book. So on this episode, we're going to be plugging it, putting pictures on it, because I want to get your book now. I know you didn't mean to plug it in a way, so so I can get my book, but
it was years ago.
Mate, I'm actually buzzing to read it now after just hearing more and more of your story. It's absolutely beautiful. It's do you know when you go through struggles in your life and there's that sense of overcoming that adversity? It's bread and butter of life, mate. It's what we're created to do and be, is to overcome the hardships of this life. And you said that anyone has the ability to do this. So would you kind of stress that to viewers? And, you know, they might be really, really down in the dumps, but would you always say it is a choice at the end of the day, whatever their almost their Achilles heel is? Because obviously this is all on alcohol and that, but would you say we always have a choice in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not qualified to, you know, to give advice of any kind. I can only talk my experiences that I've had. And, you know, but I firmly believe with the stuff that and the way my eyes have been opened over the last, you know, few years, that everyone is given the ability, you know, whether anybody reaches out. And, you know, I spoke last week about the gift of desperation, you know, and it's so true. You know, without that adversity, without that pain, you know, there's the opportunity to change direction may not come along. And good luck to the people who drift through their whole life. And, you know, I always say, you know, infant school, junior school, secondary, college, university, degree, job, fabulous, super, great, fantastic. You know, that's not my path. And that's not the path of a lot of people. You know, but everyone has the opportunity, everybody has the ability within them. Everybody has the qualities, you know, to be the best that they can be. And, you know, thankfully, you know, I've been given an opportunity and a platform like we have today to actually share that. And again, I'm the living proof that it works, and you can change your life around.
Come on, it's inspirational, mate. You're proof in the pudding. Do you know the person who gave you the leaflet? Did you ever get to see them again?
Yeah. They're still in my life now.
Quality.
They're still in my life, and like I say, the seed was planted there, and when I'd reached that point, in that desperate place, and the opportunity to change direction, something that had come from a place, and the lady who gave it to me, what she gave me was from a place of love. It was from genuine compassion, and when that when your heart's open, and those things, there's magical comes from it. And her only intention came from, there was no alternative motive. It was to help me, and it's amazing what you can do. The smallest gesture, the comment that you can make, can make the difference to somebody. Which is, which again opens up. Every word you speak is so important, and you have to be, articulate in what you say.
Massively so. Do you know when she did hand you? Yeah. Did you fight it a little bit, like kind of like, oh no, or did it just soften you straight away? Like,
I mean, I read it and it was like, wow, there's 13 out of the 15 sort of characteristics that you would say was somebody with addictive personality or addiction problem. I've got 13 of the 15, and they're saying that 3 would say that you're heading in the wrong direction. So immediately there was an acknowledgement, but I wasn't ready at that point. And but like I say, the seed had been planted, and when I needed it at that moment, when I was desperate, something that had come from an unconditional gesture was there again, right in front of me at that moment. I never thought about it for years until that moment.
That's quality. Do you know when you was at, what club were you when you started Alcohol Anonymous?
I was at Man City.
You were at Man City, right? Okay. Did the club know about it, or did you kind of keep it on the slide because obviously the repercussions or the stigma? Or
I think the whole football world knew. You can't, and again, in no way trying to glorify anything. This is my path and my journey. I had 2 grievous bodily harm charges against me, drink related. I had countless episodes of carnage with drink throughout my career, but I was a talented footballer. And, I always thought I got away with it. I got away with at 20, I never got away with it. I was just prolonging the misery really until I'd had enough. And, but I was an asset. So I was always, when things ran out at Blackburn, they sort of sold me to Blackpool. When things were going wrong at Blackpool, they sold me to Huddersfield. And when Huddersfield, I went to, so it was always there. And it wasn't like, they would have probably have been, I would have thought the club would have been a little bit, well, we knew what we were getting. When we signed him, we knew there was this, element, because Joe Royle speaks in, Joe in his autobiography said I should have played 50 times for my country. There's a reason why I didn't, so, there's acknowledgement. Sometimes I think of my journey and I'm like, I give myself credit for the path that I had and how hard it was for me to actually get, to do what I did in football. And then the flip side of that is I also, wasted a talent that I had, and I could have achieved so much more. But when I think of the mountains I've climbed in my life, I've got to take plaudits myself personally for that, because, I overcome so many obstacles and, so many things that I've seen other people, not be able to deal with or be as strong as I was through those times. So there's a flip side to that comment from Joe.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you again for that. There's a lot of, I don't want to just coast through this chat, not acknowledging that this could be quite hard to talk about at whatever point, and B, not just to flippantly carry on and just kind of park where you are. That's wow, thank you again. It's just really appreciated that you're being this open and transparent. And do you know when you had your first meeting, can you share that a little bit, what that was like for you? Did anyone come with you, or did you just go completely by yourself?
Well, the man who went on to be what I call a sponsor, met me at the door and really directed me for the next 18 months to 2 years. And like I say, I'd reached a point where I tried everything to be able to drink normally. I tried acupuncture. I tried, psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, the church. I tried everything to be able to drink like a normal person, and nothing, the carnage ensued always, it's every time I drank, I didn't get into trouble. Every time I got in trouble, I was drunk, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah.
So, and like I say, if they told me to go and sit in the corner, I would have done, and face the wall, because, I just wanted the carnage and the pain to stop. But I didn't get that, and I was made very welcome, and I felt there was a power in the room, something that I can't really, put into words. But there was something in there that night. And I left the meeting and I drove home, and I remember winding the window down and just shouting out the window, like, with such a feeling inside that is indescribable, but I was touched that night, something, and it's, the message was to come back again, make sure. And I did everything that was suggested to me, everything that the people that had been sober for a long time, what they had done, their journey, I did exactly the same. And, when I had a fear inside of me that, that this kind of gift that I've been given would be taken away, if I did anything wrong. Or so, I followed everything that was advised, and I did it, and I done it from a position of a compulsive behavior again. I threw myself completely into it.
Yeah.
And it was basically football and recovery for, the best part of the next 3 months, leading up to obviously the playoff final.
Literally, it was that year.
That year, yeah, 3 months. Well, what is it? February, March, April, May. Yeah, probably 4 months. The next 4 months was basically football training and going to AA meetings and just growing stronger every day.
Yeah. So were the lads supportive of you then? Obviously, you're captain, so.
Yeah, listen, I didn't. Again, same as when I drank. The lads didn't know. The lads didn't see me when I drank. I wasn't with them. I wasn't in Manchester.
Oh right, so you did. Oh right, yeah, okay, well, I'm with you.
Nobody knew. The players didn't see, because I was, very, resolute, and I just sip the top up and get on with training and crack on and always be ready when I was needed. So there was not, nobody was even aware that I wasn't drinking. It's obviously, he's a lot fitter, he's leaner, his mind is spot on now. There's no carnage that's affecting mental preparation or physical preparation in any way. So, people would have said, I'm playing my best football. I was as fit and as lean as I could be. And everything that goes along with that was there. I was playing every week, and we went on a fantastic run, which ended up at Wembley. And that was a really special moment. When the game finished and the changing room emptied and it was euphoric. I'll never be able to explain exactly the emotions on that day and what we went through. Just pulled from pillar to post, when the ups and downs and the, completely gone. And then the just the way it materialized on the day, you could not write it, 2-0 down going into 90 minutes and then winning on penalties. And, if we finished the game and me and Les Chapman, the kit man, were the last two people in the changing room, and Chappie left, and I just sat there and had a quiet couple of minutes of reflection. And I remember just feeling complete at that point. And I just felt the sacrifices that I'd made, and they weren't sacrifices. It felt like there was no choice. I felt this is my path now. And but there was that moment of just kind of like, I don't know, you're just at one with the universe. Everything feels real. And then you're back in, you leave that changing room and you're back into the interviews, the euphoria of that moment. You meet your family and everything. But, I remember them couple of minutes on my own in the changing room like they were yesterday. They'd never left me because it was so powerful.
That's amazing. Do you know you got the pyramid, and it's got the service, recovery and unity. What's that all about? And how did it help you, like,
all I know is that, like, each year, I get a chip and it goes up in Roman numerals. I'm not too
Yeah.
sure on that, what they represent, but it's just the power of the runes, and the message and the unconditional giving. I think, that you're there when somebody else reaches out. I don't morose in the misery of what my drinking used to be like, or go back to them. But when a newcomer comes along and comes into a meeting, I feel it straight away. It takes me back, and immediately, like I say, you have compassion, and that you've been through that. You are where they are now, and you can, you can come through it, and and that's the strength and the power of the rooms for me.
So for you, is it like, do you have to complete the 3 months as a program, and then it's like a lifestyle thing to keep coming back to?
There's no program.
No.
Not for me. It's it just the meetings are there for you to go to. The messages and everything that you need are in them rooms. And there's certainly no contract signed when you go in.
No. And is it something you can go weekly to, well,
there's meetings everywhere. There's hundreds of meetings in the Cheshire and the Manchester area.
Wow.
So you can do a meeting morning, afternoon, and night if you want.
That's brilliant.
It's there for people who need it.
And so you talked about earlier, I remember right at the start, you were telling us about it being a celebration. How have you been able to just maintain this choice and this discipline for the course of your life, the last 23 years? What would you say is a big factor in that? Like, for doing
it? I think, I wouldn't say the sacrifices, but there's a program in place, and I follow that program, and anyone who, reaches the position I'm in, whether it's as bad as that or not, there's a process, there's a program in place to follow. And the messages are within that room, and anyone that needs it is there for everybody. And, without, like I say, it's not breaking anonymity, I do think now, people are more open-minded. People are reaching out more now, and there's no secrecy around it. I understand why it's Alcoholics Anonymous. I get that. But the world's changed a lot, especially for me in the last 10, 15 years. We've moved on with social media so much now. But the message is still the same. If you've got a problem with alcohol, and it's costing you more than money, there's an avenue there for you to reach out, and you'll be amazed at what's available to you.
That's amazing. And so any bloke watching like today, what would you say to them as a part of your inspiration for what you've done? How can you give them a small bit of encouragement right now if they're watching this and go, right, well, nice one, Andy, good for you, but I'm struggling right now. Yeah.
I think with somebody who's, like I said, somebody who experienced the things I have done, and publicly shamed in many ways, for things that occurred in my drinking, and now, I'm able to say I'm 23 years without a drink, when I couldn't go, not always. I can't say I couldn't go a week without a drink, but I couldn't go long without knowing that the drink was coming, and I knew I was going to get my escape. And I think that's the message there in itself. It's the power of example. And that's what's always, that's what caught me at the, that's what I captured early on, was the example of other people who have actually turned their lives around, and they're talking about things that I've done. They're talking about feelings. They're talking about the way they were and how they saw the world, and now they don't see it that way. And, they've come from those places of desperation, and they've turned their life around, and like I say, the power of example is huge. Because we can read books, you can go and speak to somebody, who can lecture about addiction or whatever. But when somebody's experienced it and they come out the other side, there's nothing else to touch that for me.
It's amazing. No, thank you. And in terms of like your mental health journey, like towards all of this, what you've been through. What have you been doing with your own mental health? Have you linked it to the drinking? Is it something that, you know, you've seen from the past leading up to now, 23 years later? Has your mental health generally improved? Like, what's your view?
I think, listen, I'm no different to anyone. I'm most certainly not floating on a cloud. I'm most certainly not waking up in the morning and, you know, the violins are playing. You know, the same day-to-day pressures that come along for every human being.
Yeah.
And life puts things in front of you that are challenging. But, you know, drink doesn't help. It doesn't make things okay, you know. And, you know, it's about dealing with things one day at a time. And whatever comes along in any given day, I can deal with it. If I, you know, project too far ahead, I can become anxious and panic. If I look back, you know, at the carnage, you know, you can close in and, you know, feel shame or whatever. But every single day I wake up, I know it's a gift because of where I've been. And I know that, you know, if I do the same things today as what I did yesterday and what I've done for the last 23 years, there's a fair chance I'll put my head on the pillow tonight and, you know, everything will be fine. And what I've seen and the experiences, life experiences, you know, when I think of the challenges I've had over the last 10 years, what I've thought were huge moments and, you know, they were life-changing moments. And I look back at them now and they were irrelevant. They really were. You know, of course they were challenging, but, you know, I can deal with anything that comes along today. Any challenge that comes in today, I'll deal with it, you know. And like I say, as long as I keep things in the day, everything's been all right for a long time.
That's amazing. I know I'm keep asking probing questions, but it's just because you've been through so much, and your wisdom and your experience is invaluable to people who may be watching. In the area of temptation, do you know, like, say, I don't know, you might be somewhere, or you might be around people, or you might be alone. When that moment of temptation comes, what's one of your biggest strategies to resist and to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, you know, those sort of things are things that I dealt with in my first months of sobriety.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, and, you know, now I'm in a position today where those things are not, you know, I've never become complacent, but they don't play a part in my life. But
wow,
you know, in them early days, of course, you know, and, you know, if you stay away from places and you mix with the right people, you know, and, you know, I love the analogy, if you keep going to the hairdressers enough, eventually you're going to say, go on, then I'll have a haircut when I'm here. You know, when the drink was the same, you know, when, you know, it's, you know, I stayed away from them places, you know, and I went, you know, I immersed myself in recovery early on. You know, today, it's totally different for me today. You know, their moments don't come, but I still have, you know, there's still a program in place that had to work, you know, and I call it, you know, and it's, I'm pinching something from somebody else that I heard many years ago. You know, my sober batteries are absolutely full to the brim. You know, if I don't go to meetings, if I don't speak with other people who are in recovery, then them batteries run away, you know.
Right.
And when they run flat, then it becomes a dangerous position, you know, where the thought or, you know, the reality of the carnage that ensues with a drink doesn't seem so bad. And I've seen it in so many occasions, you know, and I keep my batteries fully charged so that whenever anything comes along, you know, I'm able to deal with it.
That's phenomenal. I love that. That's really challenged me in good ways, mate, as well. Like, there's things in my life that I want to keep on top of.
Yeah.
And just hearing you saying that, I'm like, yo, this guy here has got absolute ownership over this thing. Like, it's like the slave and master analogy, isn't it? Like, you're either enslaved to it as it's your master, or you master it and it becomes your slave. And you truly mastered it, mate.
Yeah, for today I have.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's what I love about you. You've got that humility as well, and you take a day at a time. I think that's huge, and good for our viewers to take on board for sure. No, thank you. And just lastly, I I want to ask you, Aaron, like the shadows question. So like, a lot of what we talked about obviously is drinking, all that lad culture that's still prevalent today in many ways, and cocaine can be a big problem at the moment as well. But in terms of men that are just feeling really hopeless where they are in their life right now, mate, and they feel suicidal, have you got any advice for them, like a small piece of advice today, and then they're watching this?
I can only talk from my own experiences. I'm not qualified to give out any advice whatsoever. I've been in that position. I've been in that moment in my life. And thankfully for me, the courage came along to make a choice in my life. And it's about reaching out. It really is. It takes incredible courage, to surrender, and speak to people and say, I'm struggling. It's not the nature of a man. It's not the way we're brought up. It's not the way we're structured, is to actually say, I'm really struggling. But, how or when that comes about, I'm not sure. But anyone who's in that position, all I can say is there's an avenue, there's a road, there's somewhere that you can turn to, and you can turn your life around. And I know, as I said last week in my tweet, the options I had, and there's so many good people, so many good men that have taken option 2, which was to take my own life. And if you do that, you'll be killing the wrong person, because you've got to give yourself, it's there for everyone. Everyone can find, where that recovery, but like I say, it is tough, and I wouldn't want anyone to go where I got to, in that point in their life, but it's where I needed to be. And the point of speaking to you today, and the point of putting the tweet out last week, was that if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Come on, absolutely love that. Come on, fellas, you need to hear that today and really just take that on board. Like, this is why Enlighten the Shadows exist. I had a decision too, like you, Andy. I was at rock bottom. I was in the pit of despair and lost my baby, in such a bad place, lost family member, and I didn't know which way to turn, but I just had to take a day at a time and know that my life is not mine to take, and it's sacred, it's special, and it's okay to feel that way, just like everything you said, like, it's totally all right to feel that way. And actually, I found, Andy, the more people I'm blessed to talk to, like yourself, and thank you again, genuinely thank you again for opening up and sharing that, such a personal thing, and you realize actually it's not as uncommon as you think. Like, there's more people in there that do get to that point in their life. So
I think that's a really valid point you make there. We think we're unique. We think the only person who's suffering. We think the only person who's thinking the way we think, and that's a lonely, lonely place. And when you actually reach out and you just see that these thoughts are so common, and there's so many people struggling, and the surrender is the key, and once you do that, you actually realize that so many other people are living this journey, and so many other people are suffering, so many other people are struggling. I think maybe one day we'll all have the answer, and the world will live in harmony. But as it is at the minute, it's challenging, and we're all being challenged, but as I said, as you spoke about there, and what I've already said, we don't have to suffer alone. We can reach out, and it's there for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, mate. Fellas, just as Andy said, signpost right now on the screen for you is our private men's Facebook group. We've got over 500 of us on there. And look, did I ever think that I'd be able to have this many guys that we could help? No, not at all. But, we all have a choice, and we can all reach in. And that's what that group is about. We reach into one another. It's not about us getting out. Yeah, we're reaching out for this episode. We're reaching out for put it on the screen. But trust me, on my days, when you're on that group, you're going to get so much encouragement, so much love and support. Some blokes, they're not quite ready for that. It can be a bit like, oh yeah, I need some space. That's absolutely fine. You're processing stuff, as Andy so brilliantly put. Like, he wasn't quite ready, and when he was ready, he was ready. So just jump in. It's free. It's a free service. Like Andy said himself, we're not professionals. We're just normal blokes that have their struggles, and we know what it's like. And we don't feel your exact pain, but you know, we're here to support you, and we'll pour mad love on you, and we'll get you through it. And that's how we call it the Brotherhood. So yeah, join that group. Of course, Andy's Twitter handle's been on. It's on the screen now. It's been throughout the episode. Give him a follow. Why not? And check it out. We'll get his book. Get his book. I'm on it. I'm gonna buy it. I'm looking forward to that. Andy, I'll have to let you know how it gets on, pal. I'll have to say, give you a cheeky review. Yeah, we'll plug it on the group as well, because again, we don't know. That's why I call it Enlighten the Shadows. We don't know which men are suffering in the shadows. There could be men on our group who are suffering in the shadows with alcoholism, and this chat today, mate, just might cause the projection to change in their life. So thank you, appreciate it, mate. But yeah,
pleasure. Thanks for
guys.
having me.
Thank you. This has been episode 47 with Andy Morrison, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Cheers, mate.